This is a WWN Publishing Group recording. Copyright 2017, all rights reserved. This is an abridged version of Knight Takes Pawn, Book 1 of the Red Knight series by Martha Sweeney, to make the story appropriate for all listeners on YouTube. Read to you by the author. If you want to read the complete story, you can find the ebook or paperback online. Links are provided below in the description. Chapter 14, Night. I damn near came in my pants the second Red walked through the door. Even though I know what she looks like naked, the dress flaunts every single one of her curves. My eyes are instantly drawn to the necklace that rests at the base of her breasts, and by the way the fabric clings to her body, I imagine that she isn't wearing any underwear. I shift in my seat for her to sit on my lap, wanting to hide from her, and everyone else, the boner I'm sporting. "Good to see you didn't run," I say low in her ear. Red moves slightly, causing her body to slump into mine more. She goes to sit back up, but I indiscreetly stop her. She complies, but continues to avoid making eye contact. I can tell that she's uncomfortable with the seating arrangement. My right hand holds her hip as my left caresses her thigh. She jerks a little when my fingers inch up underneath her dress and she tries to get me to move. I keep my hand right where it is and place it higher just to freak her out more. I'm going to have to get her to be more comfortable with me touching her in public. This is what's the norm here, and we can't risk having everyone suspect that we aren't actually sleeping together. I overheard one of the new guys stating how his girl put up a fight and refused him. Red would get in major trouble for not servicing me to my satisfaction. Gods only know what Jagger or the other guys would say or do to Red and me. I'm sure that not getting your woman to service you on your first night together shows your inability to do the shit Jagger has us do. You want me to kill a guy? Done. You want me to force myself on a girl who is scared shitless of you and doesn't want it? That's where I have a challenge. I'm not pussy-whipped. I just don't want to force myself on her even though it's starting to become more of a challenge to control my desires for her. Red drives me crazy in so many ways, sexually, mentally, and sometimes I can't stand her. That's not saying much since I can't stand most people in this stacking place. Everyone's chatting freely as I watch the floor through the window and Red through my peripheral. I make sure I'm always touching her. I can tell it drives her crazy, which gets me off a little, but at the same time, I like feeling her. It's comforting somehow. "Red," Jagger calls. My head jerks to the left at the sound of his voice, and I see him taking his last few steps toward us. "How about a drink, sweetheart?" Jagger offers her the champagne flute in his hand. Red accepts it without hesitation and clinks her glass with Jagger's when he extends his hand toward her. Jagger tips his head to the side and offers us a grin before heading back to Lynn. "Good girl," I praise lowly in her ear. She takes a sip but still refuses to look at me. I nip at her shoulder, which forces her head to turn. "Hey," I greet. She barely nods before looking away. I nip at her again. She turns with a heated glare. "You look good," I chuckle, enjoying our little game of irritation. She offers a fake smile. "You keep this up, and I won't be chaining you to the wall," I tease. Red offers me an annoyed look. "Unless you want me to," I goad, sliding my hands up her thigh a little more. Red shakes her head slightly as she tries to block my attempt to see if in fact she's wearing panties or not. "Too bad," I chuckle, squeezing her leg and sliding my hand back down a little. She ignores me, yet tries to shift when my hand moves to her ass. "You're going to have to get used to this," I state. Red looks at me. I squeeze her cheek. "This," I say, enjoying how she's squirming under my touch. Red tries to move again to prevent me from holding her ass. I don't let her win, insisting on more contact, which only seems to piss her off. She shoots me an irritated expression when I laugh. Jagger returns sometime later to chat with Red and me a little. Jagger can strike up a conversation with anyone about anything easily, which makes sense why he's the one in charge. He knows how to handle people. He shares a few things about the place and how things are run with Red, as I listen in and watch the two of them interact. Compared to any of the other girls, other than Lynn, Jagger seems to have taken a real liking to Red. He enjoys her presence even though she doesn't speak. He lights up as he explains things further for her, as if she's a child being taught something. Red sits calmly, looking at Jagger the majority of the time he speaks, unless he draws her attention to something in the room or down in the club. She's respectful, giving him her undivided attention. From how Jagger shares information with her, I'm guessing that Red's never been to the club at any point before tonight. "Have you heard from Victor?" Jagger asks, looking to me. Not yet, I confirm. I should in a day or two. I can't have any more challenges with the next shipment, Jagger reminds. I know, I agree. I've told him the consequences if he dacks up again. Good, Jagger praises. He's not usually one to discuss business with any of the other girls around, except Lynn. It makes me wonder exactly what his expectations are for Red. How are you and Red getting along? He inquires with a grin. Good, I say, looking at Red. Isn't that right? I ask her, rubbing her thigh. Red remains calm and stoic, which is not her usual manner. She smiles at me and then retains it when she looks to Jagger. And you, Red, he checks. She lifts a brow in question. Do you think things are good between you and Knight? She nods and tries to control her expression when my hand smooths over her ass. Good, Jagger praises. I'm glad to see my two favorite people getting along so well. Jagger gets up and makes his way to Lynn. The two of them disappear for a while, which allows the rest of the gang to relax a little more. Red and I continue to lounge on our chair. I pretend to drink, always spitting the little bit that enters my mouth back into the glass. None of the guys here ever pay much attention to details, so it's easy to make them think I've had more to drink than I really have. When I go to pretend to refill my drink, I have Red sit on the armrest until I get back. I'm always able to grab an already empty glass and fill it up just enough at the bar. Red doesn't know my trick, but I'm going to have to teach her if she's going to be with me more often. Do you dance? I ask Red when I return. I reach out my hand and she takes it, standing. Red shakes her head in reply. Every woman dances, I share. She looks at me, but doesn't give any indication either way. I pull her in to kiss me, but she pushes at my chest. Sliding my hand around her neck more firmly, I guide her with enough force to move closer to me. You're going to need to get used to me touching you, Red, I whisper in her ear. She shakes her head. Yes, I confirm. At least in public. She tries to oppose. Kiss me now, or else, I threaten. She tugs her head back enough to look me in the eye. She's trying to assess the situation, which is smart. I raise my brows enough for her to get the point. She's not happy with the direction, but she complies. Red presses her lips to mine and then pulls away after a second. I'd have to say that I'm enjoying my job more if it means being able to touch her this much. Perhaps in time I'll be able to get her so riled up that she'll be begging me to dack her. I said, kiss me, Red, I repeat. She lets out a heavy sigh before moving her lips closer to mine. That's better, I applaud, after she uses her tongue several times. The night is pretty low-key, no stupid idiots for now, but it's still early. Some kind of shit always ends up going down. People get stupid when they drink. At some point, I take Red on a little tour of the place. I usually make rounds, but Jagger let me off the hook tonight when he confirms that this is Red's first night out. I keep a firm grip on her hand the entire time, not willing to risk the chance of her running. Since many of the people know who I am, they move out of the way when Red and I pass. Red stops in front of a door down a certain hallway we move through, and I'm not sure if she knows what's down there or not. Did you want to go down? I ask. She nods, keeping her eyes fixed on the door. I'd lead her down the dark steps and into a long, poorly lit hall that has 20 doors, 10 on either side. Most of the rooms are closed off, but when we make it to the end, I'm fairly certain Red knows what's going on by the sounds echoing beyond them. A shiver runs down her body, and I'm confident the place brings back memories. I speculate that she was here before she came to the house. We've got many hallways on each level for these purposes. Some are relaxed and casual, while others have a slightly more interesting design and intended means. A door suddenly flies open and a client steps out with his shirt still undone. He zips up his pants as he stares Red down. I like you, the grimy Dax states, licking his lips. She's not for sale, I bite. I'll pay double, he offers. Don't care, I reply. It's not happening. Triple, the Dacker bids. Taken, shouts a voice from the end of the hall. I turn and find Jagger. He's moving toward us, and I nod to acknowledge his command. Dack, I grunt. I look at Red, and she doesn't seem conflicted with Jagger's response. Why don't we offer you a different room, Jagger suggests. One that's a little more tailored to your style. The client smirks. Sure. Come, Red, Jagger calls, reaching out his right hand. Red doesn't look back at me as she pulls away, following Jagger's direction. Jagger leads Red to a particular room, letting her go in first. The client tries to pass through, but Jagger blocks him. He sticks his hand out in front of the man's chest, expecting payment. He hands Jagger his wallet. That's not triple, Jagger scoffs with a devious grin. The man takes off his watch, and Jagger inspects it thoroughly. With the tilt of his head, 2 guards, who've been in the shadows the whole time, take a hold of the client by his shoulders. "What the?" the client begins. "Just checking to see if you have anything else of value," Jagger states. "This one is special. Very special. I'm sure you can understand why she costs as much as she does. No pay, no play." "Fine," the guy huffs. The guards remove 2 golden necklaces and a ring from the man. When he goes to take his jacket back from them, I stop him. I check the jacket and find a larger wad of cash, a bag of drugs, and a knife inside a hidden pocket. "Good eyes," Jagger praises. He looks to one of the guards. "Check the room." Jagger must think the guy has damaged his previous girls by the look of the knife. The 2 guards head back down the hallway and disappear out of sight. "You know what I like," the sick Dak states. "She better be worth it." "Yes, I do," Jagger confirms. "But I also told you that this one is special." He pauses for a brief second. Jagger runs his knuckles down Red's right cheek. "And besides, there are some toys in there that I'm sure you'll like, which will make her worth it." Before the door closes behind the client, Jagger signals for me to follow him to a hidden door that leads to a room that has a 2-way mirror in it. I can see Red and that sick Dak. My palms start to itch, not enjoying that Jagger wants me to watch this asshole possibly have his way with Red. I didn't see him give her a weapon, and there's not much in the room she can use unless she gets a bit creative. Red plays a little coy with the man as she drags her fingers along the whips, crops, and handcuffs. He follows Red's movements, and I notice his erection. Red leads him to a binding area, and I start to sweat. "Don't worry, Knight," Jagger soothes. "Red knows what she's doing." I glance at him for a brief second, but don't comment. "I know you like her," Jagger adds. "I don't blame you. She's a lot like us, and that's what fascinates me about her. She doesn't hesitate to kill for self-preservation." I nod while I keep my eyes on Red. "Why him?" "Why not?" Jagger states. "There are plenty of better clients to entertain." The guy tries to see if Red will let him tie her up, but she offers a sassy grin and points to him being on the table. She grabs a hippora crop off the nearby wall and points to it insistently. At first, he avoids it, but I'd say curiosity gets the better of him. He leans over the back part, and before his chest hits the padding, Red flicks the crop and hits him in the ass. He jolts a little in surprise, but you can tell that she barely clipped him. Jagger laughs. "She's a tease." "Have you watched her work before?" I inquire, digging for information. "No," Jagger confirms with eagerness. "It is exciting, though, isn't it?" I swear the man is salivating. His eyes are dilated a bit. "Sure," I say. "I've been dying to watch her work. And this is the perfect opportunity," he adds. I wanted to give her something to help, but knowing that she's killed without a weapon, I wanted to see what she'd do. I don't comment. "Is it satisfying for you, Knight?" Jagger asks. "What do you mean?" "You're able to bed this lethal weapon," he states. "Did she put up a fight?" "Still does," I lie with a chuckle. "Really?" Jagger says excitedly. "I like when they make it interesting." I snort. If he only knew how Red keeps it interesting. "I was pleased that you chose her," Jagger states. I take my eyes off of Red for a few seconds, hoping to catch his expression. Jagger's eyes stay forward as if he's in a trance while he watches Red and the asshole in the room with her. "How did you know I'd let you have her?" Jagger asks. I look back to find Red running her hands along the client. "I didn't," I admit. "Really?" he checks. I knew the 2 other newbies didn't have the balls to take her, not with the rumors. I knew the others wouldn't ask permission to upgrade to her, and it was either I got her or you'd kill me, I state. "You knew your odds," Jagger returns. "That being killed was low?" "Yes," I confirm. "That's why I like you, Knight," Jagger praises. "I could tell you weighed your options very carefully." I nod even though I know he can't really see me. "You earned my respect when you had selected her as your woman, but also because you have survived her as well," Jagger presents. "Thank you," I return coolly. "I know you can hold your own," Jagger says. "But it does amaze me at how she fights to the death with all of them, but you." He pauses for a few seconds. "It makes me wonder what about you has her mesmerized." I smirk, but don't take it for granted. "She's a sly one," I admit. "She keeps me on my toes." "Lynn does the same to me," Jagger shares. We see a part of ourselves in them, and that's the exhilarating element. They challenge us, and we like a challenge. Things that are too easy become boring too quickly. I agree. Jagger's more than intrigued by Red. I think he's borderline in love with her because of his idea of her. I don't doubt he ponders the idea of lying next to her at night, and especially to dack her. The only reason why he won't, by my speculations so far, is that he's scared that she actually just might kill him. Jagger likes the power she commands, but maybe he doesn't think he could control her or stop her because of his infatuation. It's interesting that for a man who runs a Jaruian and sex trafficking business, drugs and other unsavory things, that he has a stable relationship. I'm not sure exactly how his and Lynn's relationship works, but I know that Jagger respects her far more than any other woman. Red would be the only exception. I've known that Jagger sleeps with some of the other girls, but I learned quickly that Lynn is involved and is usually the one selecting which girls join them. I wonder if Lynn is a known killer like Red. Red spanks the dacker a few more times, even with him lowering his pants at some point while Jagger and I were talking. She grabs a long, thin metal chain and drags it to him. She teases him with it, rubbing it along his bare ass before wrapping it lightly around his hands that are on the armrests. I think she's getting to the finale, Jagger boasts eagerly. Without a second thought, and before the guy can object, Red takes the rest of the chain and quickly wraps it twice around his neck. She uses her shin to keep him in place as she pulls back on the metal. The man's eyes widen and his face turns beet red. They always told me that she choked them, Jagger states eerily. That's what she did with the first one, so I gave her a choking wire after that. We didn't dare give her a gun, let alone a knife. He pauses for a few seconds. I'm not that stupid. He pauses again. She did try to flee a few times, even attacked Breaker, which made me not give her a weapon after that. You don't say, I return, trying not to show my amusement about her willingness to fight Breaker. She got creative when we didn't give her a weapon. Choked one with the pillowcases, Jagger admits. I snort, not really surprised, while I picture it in my head. I'm sure it drove Breaker crazy, even more so when I wouldn't let him touch her, Jagger adds. Do you think I hurt his ego when I denied him? With a man like Breaker? Yes, I confirm. But then again, I don't think it takes much to hurt his ego. Do you think he's the one who hurt my little Red? He would have reason to, but there's no evidence, I state. Did Red tell you who it was? He checks. She doesn't talk, I remind. I didn't know if she'd give it away with how she acted around him, Jagger comments. She's not afraid of Breaker, I state. That man wants everyone to be afraid of him, Jagger shares. He wants me to be afraid of him. Jagger lets out a low chuckle. I can see how you'd come to that conclusion, I reply. He'd never make a good leader, Jagger mentions. I let him think he's in charge, but he's really not. My mouth curls to the right as my gaze returns to Red, pleased with how much Jagger is sharing with me tonight. I've been working my way through the ranks for a few years now, and it's only been since 4 months ago that I've gotten his attention enough to allow me to join his entourage. The guy barely fights Red, even though he could get his hands out from the loose chains if he'd only think rather than panic. Red looks to the mirror, and I know she knows we're in here watching. Her expression is calm, unrelenting, and dark. A chill runs down my back, not because I'm concerned that I'm living with a fellow killer, but because of the heightened level of desire I have for her. I look over to Jagger and find a pleased, satisfied look on his face, as if he had just orgasmed himself. This is the end of this chapter. Thank you for listening. I hope you're enjoying the story so far. To read the full, unabridged version, you can find a link in the description below. To find out about new releases before the general public, be sure to subscribe to my newsletter. Also, to be notified when the next chapter is published, make sure you subscribe to my channel.